So when I first saw this, I thought it was a joke. Like, I thought this person was like making a joke collage to make fun of these losers, right? Nope. Turns out this is something that this person genuinely believes. And it turns out that, like, this is how the fandom of these content creators also see themselves as. Before we talk about the government shutdown, I got to cover this insane home math guy, one of Asmon Roach's favorite content creators, okay? So this person, Bailey Moon, responds to Ben M. Freeman, who says, do not vote for Zohran Mamdani. Now, when you look at where Ben M. Freeman is coming from, I don't even think he is a New York resident. Maybe I'm wrong. But in any case, this girl says, too bad I did today, as in voted for Zohran Mamdani. This caused people to lose their minds, okay? Including this guy. Homath equals psychomath. This is it, friends. This is where I come from. These are the fires in which my disgust was forged. The vacant stare, the Miss America smile, the trappings of middle-class conformist consumerism, the self-assured, momentary, tell me I'm pretty pose, clashing with the lack of effort and self-presentation, and the impatience of choosing an unflattering background, the smug, condescending delivery of the message, I have done what you wanted me not to do. All of it completely irrelevant to the topic at hand, forced awkwardly in front of it, obscuring it, replacing it, upstaging it, or so she hopes. Standing between you and what matters, she says only, look at me. Look at the difficulty I've caused for you. Witness the joy that I can only derive from being your problem. This is not about politics. She doesn't understand them. She doesn't even think she knows better than you. She only knows that you can't tell her what to do. She doesn't even think she has power. She only knows that you have even less. And this is where she places her heart. When the bill for her foolishness comes due, oh, how her expression will change. No longer a bold and toothy smile. Now a pouting bottom lip. No longer a triumphant hand in presentation of her own radiance. Now, through the eyebrow scowl, arms folded. No longer an empowered, educated feminist. Now a hapless princess in need. A real man pays the bill without asking. She offers nothing. She demands everything. She will never be held accountable for the destructiveness of her choices. She will be celebrated then as she is now, not for her contributions, but because where she is celebrated is where she will choose to be. She is the table, and the table is set, and she placed her order, and all that now remains is waiting to be served. I think we need to institutionalize people like this. Controversial opinion. But if you see someone being like, lol, I voted for Zohran, and it causes you to write Sephiroth-style screeds from an incel position about women in society, you need to get medical treatment, like, instantly. Now, I'm seeing a lot of chatter say, oh, sterilization now. You think this has the capacity to reproduce? Are you kidding me? First of all, if he did, this wouldn't happen, okay? This is a self-solving problem, okay, on the sterilization front. Don't worry about that. Ian Miles Chong's ChatGPT. Clearly, ChatGPT written version is even funnier. This is the vanity that ignites the bonfire of self-sabotage, where privilege masquerades as defiance and the mirror eclipses the... What the f*** did this... Why is this lady bricking people so hard? What is going on, man? I think we're cooked, dude. We're cooked. Here. The ponytail pulled high, like a flag of casual conquest. The earbud dangling, a whisper of distraction in an already echo-chambered mind. The grin that's all teeth and no teeth. It's all bright, performative, the kind that says, I've won the argument, by not engaging it. Her words, A shrug in text form. Too bad I did today. Not an explanation, not a rationale, just a taunt wrapped in faux regret. A middle finger flipped with a wink. She's not debating policy. She's declaring independence from advice, from consequence, from the very stakes that affect everyone around her. You said don't, she implies. So I did, and here's my face to prove it. She doesn't grasp the irony that is in the warning. She's courting the very erosion that safeguards she takes for granted. Those rights she has, they're privileges. She will lose them. And when she does, she'll blame you for giving her the lighter she used to set her house on fire. She contributes a pixel to the chaos, yet claims the whole screen, entitled to echo, oblivious to the void. She is the echo chamber itself, resonant, reflective, and utterly empty. All because she voted for a guy that wants universal childcare, fast and free buses, and a rent freeze for rent-stabilized units in New York. That's it. That's what this is, by the way. That's literally what this is. I hope people understand that's what's going on here. I think she responded and said, dude, this is the second time you posted about me in 12 hours. You have got to calm down. Don't flatter yourself. I post about patterns, not people. You just volunteered as the example. We used to bully people like this, man. What happened? We used to bully people like this. We used to just point and laugh at that did shit like this in public. And now, in the age of everything is online, all of those who were bullied can run around and find community and live in their own filth. I don't understand it. I genuinely don't understand it. It's those who were bullied in perpetuity turning around and finding comfort that there are others who are just as mentally ill as they are. This is, I don't know. This is just so crazy. Get white people on the internet mad enough and they'll start talking like Sasuke Uchiha. Yeah, it's true. The societal field shifted towards them because they got no one else to listen to. The picture is definitely her, by the way. It's just the app that puts fake smiles on people, Lamau. The reason right-wingers are mad because right-wingers think all feminists all feminists or left-wing women are ugly, blue-haired, polycule enjoyers. So the fact that a conventionally attractive woman is leftist doesn't compute for them. Yeah, except if they were in the real world, they would realize that that's not how this goes at all. You know, like, that's just not how this this has nothing to do with anything. You know what I mean? People's like physical attractiveness is not slotted into some kind of political orientation. It's so stupid. New name, Psychomath. History's manliest and most hilarious sex genius. That's his description. Bro trying to go after Stavros too? Who? Also, the funniest part about Ian Miles Chong getting upset about this is that he lives in Malaysia. So he can't even hit the Islamophobic lines because he lives in Malaysia. I don't know, man. This is just so broken. If the guy in this photo says he wants to save young men, the police should probably start listening. Nothing says mentor like a middle-aged man in a cat ears and a velour tracksuit. I mean, Ian Miles Wrong has gotten no motion for quite a while. This is the highest amount of recognition he could possibly get in the last couple of years. Look at this. There's 45 likes, bro. Come on. Yeah, he has fallen the off. When will people learn half these people's posts are just clear engagement bait? I think that there is enough people who do truly agree with this sentiment, or at least find this to be like a courageous moment for someone to tell it like it is. You know what I mean? Like, I love how angry right-wing men get when you're pretty and have a different view to them. It takes a whole new genre of misogyny. When you're pretty and have a different view, this is actually seriously what happens in their minds. They cannot process the results of different ideology any further than I have an idea and you have an idea, so we're equal, like kindergarten. And then they look, wait, what? Wait, this is kind of like this used to be the right-wing position against liberals, which was, oh, it's just a difference in opinion. Why are you getting so mad about it? And then they look for what could be causing negative emotion. Of course, the first thing they find is everyone wants to fuck me. That's it. That's all that's in there. Ideas are interchangeable and everything just happens as a response to my sexuality. No, I think in your situation, it's that. That's not always the case. But your response, like this person's response to something that is not all that significant, like a silly response being taken super sincerely, it kind of does feel like you have some pathological sexual desire here. And she has no clue why we wouldn't want people like this voting, and she never will. They keep doing it. Even when you explain it, they do it again. It's literally, you cannot process the fact that there are many ideologies out there, none of them absolute, and everyone is entitled to their own. You've literally repeated your own ignorance. Now shut the fuck up and mind your own business. Yeah. She has no concept of maps and territories. If she could conceive that concept, she would explain, we just have different territories, and she would be right, but not for the right reason. My wife decides using feelings, then she uses her reason to justify the choice. What the Homath is a prolific misogynist. His tweets, I know. I'm familiar with Homath. I know. He's one of the he's one of the most insane. The problem isn't that he's insane. Insane people have always existed. The problem is there are other people just as insane that he has a career posting like this. I'm 40. Oh my God. I was 16 on January 1st, 2000. I spent 4 years in college, 6 years living in my hometown, and then 10 years in big blue cities. During that time, Gen Z women grew up and became, oh my God, he's 40. I did not know that. My life experience is based almost entirely on millennial women. The TikTok girlies are exactly like them, only a bit, and then it's not a clickable. How is there a ... more on there, but it's not even like a clickable long tweet? I mean, this quite literally is no more Mr. Nice Guy. Wait, what? No more Mr. Nice Guy? I feel guilty when I say no. Practical female psychology for the practical man, the rational male to start. Oh my God, this guy is sincerely posting this. Oh my God, I thought he was making fun of Homath by being like, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Oh, it's a pause for effect. Oh, it's italicized text. He edited the formatting on Twitter. I'm just incredible. You're cooked too. Dude is way too old to be dating Gen Z women. He's like 14 years old in the older Gen Z. What the I watched like one of his vids for the drawings, then quickly found out his autistic hyperfixation is misogyny. Yeah. I think one of the saddest parts about this kind of shit is that like guys, young men especially, and even older men who are mentally stunted do not realize that these guys cannot give them any advice because they have no relevant experience in the field. So all they end up doing, all what these guys end up doing is basically just coddle these people and push them further into the depths of hating women. That's their entire goal, is just coddling. It blows my mind that people people don't see it. Their purpose here is not to help you navigate the treacherous nature of interpersonal relations with the other gender. Okay, it's not about like teaching you how to navigate talking to women and find a lifelong partner or whatever. It's just about making you feel like, you know, you're not at fault at all. You've done nothing. You've done all the right things, and that women don't want to fuck you regardless, and not because of your stinky vibes, stinky demeanor, or just like literal stink, and because you're entitled to this pussy, and they won't give you what you are entitled to because they've deluded themselves into thinking they have any autonomy in this process. And all that does is teach people, mostly young men, and even some older men that behave like silly little boys, that there is no way out of this, that you should just hate women. You should just give up. They get really mad when your aesthetics don't match what they think of a leftist woman should look like, ugly, Some fast tried to ask me out at an academic function. I always wear my wedding band. So what the fuck? I said no. He's not talking over me and interrupting me since then. It's exhausting in mostly male environments. I think that's part of the reason why I brick a lot of right-wing and reactionary brains as well, because they've like fancied themselves to they see themselves as like beacons of masculinity, but they don't actually look the part. And these guys are lizard brain for the most part, and they despise it. Oh, this was my favorite. I saw this tweet. I couldn't believe it. They were gamers, anime and manga fans, and pop culture commentators who never touch politics. But as the world drifted from truth and woke politics invaded our hobbies, many content creators turned political to defend their passions. Leftists, thriving on lies and disinformation, hate it when apolitical people join the fray, facing death threats, false allegations, and insane propaganda from the mentally unwell, and are labeled grifters. As George Orwell puts it, George Orwell, the further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it. More people are getting red pilled daily, unable to tolerate the nonsense promoted by mainstream news. So when I first saw this, I thought it was a joke. Like, I thought this person was like making a joke collage to make fun of these losers, right? Nope. Turns out this is something that this person genuinely believes. And it turns out that like this is how the fandom of these content creators also see themselves as. Every single person on this list, if you were to try to explain their positions to a random person in the real world, or what they do, or the space that they occupy online, most people in the real world would look at you like, what do you mean a cartoon pedophile Nazi that defends Israel unconditionally is constantly talking about, you know, video games not serving his sexual desires, and how this is a grand scheme by woke. What? Get a life, man. I want this on the record. I'm a sexless 39-year-old Warhammer nerd who's not angry at women or really at anything. Every time I see one of these hateful I'm so grateful that I'm not built like that. My advice to young men, just be normal and relax. Yes. Speaking of incel culture, there was this video from The Guardian on TikTok about that is about a guy who brought himself out of the incel pipeline and made me a bit hopeful.
Like, hey, we just want to be better with dating. We just want better social skills, right? And then before you know it, you're talking about like women are dogs and you need to train them. When I was 17, I fell down the red pill pipeline and I managed to get myself out about 5 years later. The term red pill comes from the movie The Matrix. So it's basically saying that you have a truth or knowledge no one else seems to have. They would say that society is gynocentric, which means that society caters to women, that women only want the top 20% of guys. And this isn't true. I would say at 17, I was socially awkward, very introverted. I felt I was ugly in high school. So I went on YouTube and looked up tips regarding dating and women.
The thing is, this kind of stuff works very well for an audience that has given up on existing in the real world. And as we spend more time on the internet, and as stuff on the internet now has the capacity to change the way we see the real world more and more, those guys dominate, even if they never go outside. That's a big problem. That is a major issue. Because you don't go outside, lol. Brother, I am the most outside, despite the fact that I exist in this unique space where I am permanently online. But also, every moment that I'm not permanently online is a moment where I'm outside. I mean, even yesterday, here we go. Wait, what? What do you mean, here we go? What, are you afraid of the truth? Like, are you afraid of hearing objective reality? What do you mean? Why are you going, la, 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 I can't hear you. I don't want to hear you. Don't ban me for sake. I'm not. Now you're fantasizing about potentially being oppressed. I was just going to simply explain to you that what you're saying is wrong, because I was literally at a major rally surrounded by 13,000 people yesterday, and before then spoke at a conference, spoke at a festival. It's perhaps the most opposite of being permanently inside. Not only that, but I also spent a good deal of time earlier this morning talking about the benefits of being outside as opposed to constantly remaining indoors. Why the don't I see that? It's a good question. That is a good question. It's one that you got to ask yourself, I think. Yeah, he wasn't in here yesterday. Anyway, I'm pretty sure sexual humiliation is what the left does all the time. They project their own insecurities being mentally stunted, which is why the projection people use calling everyone mentally ill is a confession from leftists. The left uses humiliation tactics to avoid education. This is why people think education is racist and offensive. Yeah, it's the left that feels like education is racist and offensive. You're right. Out of the two major parties, which one is the one that's actively engaging in battle against education, claiming it's woke and libtarded? And result to educating themselves in idols and people who tell them what to believe. It's a flaw in education. Shaming people doesn't work. It just creates a tribal justice mindset. Okay. So, don't you play basketball with people all the time? I do. I watch a good amount. I miss a ton, I guess. Republicans are clearly fascist. Yes. In any case, sometimes it's okay to engage in a little bit of social ostracization towards people who are demonstrating socially maladaptive behavior. Writing a long screed about a woman for posting a selfie about herself saying she voted for Zohran Mamdani of that. If you see a random girl online saying, well, I did vote for Zohran Mamdani, okay, against a post that was demanding that people not do that, and you write multiple paragraphs, yeah, that's not normal behavior. That's objectively abnormal behavior. And I think it's important to call it out. It's very strange. It's very strange to get offended at calling something like that out. And it goes back to the same cycle of demanding coddling. Also, of course, like the end point of that screed is that women shouldn't be able to vote. I think everyone has the capacity to rehabilitate themselves and change. We're in the process of watching someone literally go through the motions of doing so. Okay? But just as the sense of community building plays a formative role in capturing the attention of these young men, preying on their insecurities and pushing them further and further into this black-pilled environment, I think a little bit of pushback is necessary so that some of these guys understand that their positions are wrong. I think belittling works very well. The reason why it works very well is because it actually robs you of the power that you think you have. Because if people were to fear what that person is saying, then they're left with the notion that, like, oh, I'm doing something right because these people are negatively polarized against me because they fear me, because they fear the truth. But if your goal is to shame these people a little bit, I think that hurts a little bit harder. But make no mistake, my ultimate goal always has been to show an alternative vision, to show that there is a different path.
And it eventually led me down this deep dark hole. It was able to kind of take the weight of blame off of myself. Like, actually, women are the ones in control. You're actually the victim in this situation. It's a very appealing thing to be the victim. I didn't view it as like, I've got to put them down type of thing. Like, it was saying that, hey, we understand why you feel bad. If you just learn what we have to give you, you'll be the one winning here soon. Before you know it, you're commenting, you're reading more of it, but at the same time, you're distrustful of the women around you. You're distrustful of people around you because you think they don't know what you know. It just degrades your own mental health. You start, without even realizing it, isolating yourself. I actually felt really embarrassed if people caught me, which kind of is a telltale sign that's probably you should be watching it. I first started questioning my beliefs when I went through a breakup. Me and a friend of mine, we went to a cabin party. I started crying in front of one of the girls who I liked there. This girl responded rather with like shame and disgust that the red pill told me that they would react. She was actually like really kind about it. And that kind of made me think, what if I'm wrong? And then afterwards, I was bar hopping with a group of guys, and a few of them were red pilled. It was the first time actually meeting other red pill guys, and I could just kind of see how bitter and angry they were. There was
Oh, there it is. There it is, dude. That's when the internet world and the real world collide, and you realize that behavior that is rewarded in the circles that you're normally in on the internet, when matched against real world experiences, all of a sudden, it creates that sense of shame.
this one guy, and he was trying to do pickup techniques. It was obvious that the girls weren't liking it at all, but he kept getting more and more aggressive. I'm like, is this how I see the world? And it kind of disgusted me. I feel very guilty and ashamed because it's just like, you really thought that, man? Like, this is totally unnuanced. The reason I say it's compared to a cult, they don't like outsiders. They don't like outside thought. A lot of the comments started also sounding the same too. There was no original thought. There's a lot of, you guys make me feel like I'm at home, complaining about women, reappeal the 19th. That's the amendment that allows women to vote. There was a lot of rage. I have a mom, I have women friends, so it would be kind of like, I don't want to take away their rights. And then over time, they got really disgusting. I don't feel comfortable saying some of the other stuff I saw, just vile, misogynistic comments. That was another thing that helped me realize my beliefs in the red pill were wrong. When I first started to decide to actively stop watching red pill content, it was like flooding my feed. I would just click not interested, not interested. But regardless, they just kept appearing over and over. So yeah, it took me roughly about a year. I'm on ex-red pill forums to help other people out like I would have helped me out. Helping others too is kind of maybe a way of like rectifying it. So something I wish that someone would told me when I was in the red pill, not everyone who tells you that you're right is your friend. I feel like content creators in the red pill, they don't believe sincerely what.
Yup. Nailed it. And it's so funny because, like, if you have any social experience, any normal social experience as an adult, you instantly clock these guys as being deeply insecure. And I mean the content creators. They are always putting on a front. This bravado, this machismo, or what they claim is like masculine energy, is a show. It's pure theater. And it's actually making up for what they feel, what they are insecure about. It's all fake. And there's never been a moment where I've seen any of these guys and thought, wow, that's a real confident guy. It's super performative. And it's ironic because it's much more performative than what some people on the internet call like performative males. I was in that pipeline until I ran into a Hasanabi production compilation of e-girls thirsting over you. I realized my goats at the time are no pussy-having losers and needed to emulate you. 6 years later, I don't even care about women, just reading books and debating right-wingers online. You, Hasan, you ruined my life. So they're using hating women to make it a political persecution towards women rather than self-help. That makes a lot of sense. That's exactly what it is. It's dude, everyone wants to feel welcome, okay? Everyone wants to feel like they have no responsibility over their own demise. And to a certain degree, systemic factors play a major role in this, for sure. But it's not feminism. Usually, if we're talking about systemic factors harming you from the outset, I'm on board when you talk about capitalism. But when you talk about like women's emancipatory movements or women wanting to have equality as the major reason as to why there's this dynamic, it's just so it's silly. It's just people trying to desperately shift the attention away from whatever their own personal failures might be, and instead of addressing said personal failures, going to men who are projecting their insecurities and having them coddle them to say, you're not at fault at all. It's actually the women who are at fault because they're feminist. Women believe that they should have equality, and that's bullshit. That's why you don't get the pussy that you're entitled to. How do we fix this? I mean, one of the only ways to fix this is just by having better thought leaders and better male role models like Low Key. And also getting these dudes to work. What about women's wrongs? What about it? E. Fatlow tweeted about you. Does Matt Bernstein have any shame? Wait, I can answer that. Hasan Piker is a misogynist, animal-abusing, terrorist-loving moron, but grifters of a feather flock together. When are all of you free Palestine Jew haters going to wake up? E. Fatlow.
they say, and they're only saying it to get money and time out of you. Feminism is not bad. It's required in today's society. Also, men and women have different preferences, and sometimes you won't meet them. That's nothing personal. I think community is the solution for this. The isolation and self-involved nature of these is what's leading people down these rabbit holes. There are still lots of men, especially young men, who are being introduced to these philosophies. And if I can avoid anyone from feeling the loneliness and rage and isolation I felt when I was that young, that's a win. You start out, if you're just like, hey, we just want to be better with dating. We just want better social skills.
W growth, insane growth. I think it's notable that what got him to realize he was in the wrong was a moment of connection and vulnerability with another person is so important, is why these red pill creators will encourage men to isolate and put up a wall. Exactly. And a lot of these dudes are, after getting their brains broken by shit that they see online, a lot of these dudes will self-isolate exactly like a cult. They'll self-isolate so they never have to be corrected at all, not realizing that that is actually hurting them even further. But yeah, a little bit of pushback in that regard is necessary, in my opinion. It's certainly necessary when you're trying to show people that this is not the way, you know? When you're trying to show people that this is not socially acceptable. What is this? Are you going to cover the cutie situation because she's getting a lot of hate right now? He already did. No, I didn't. I'm not entirely aware of what has taken place with Cutie Cinderella. I've only seen a couple tweets and shit, but I think as societal conditions worsen, people tend to look at imperfect allies and whatever their take is, no matter how bad it might be, right? People tend to look at imperfect allies as like the main enemy. I'm not one of those people. I never will be one of those people. Maybe because it's my privilege of being a white man, you know? But I'm always going to be broadly understanding of people's background and some of the things that they say that come across as not so great, or especially in a moment of panic, if they feel like the pressure is on and then they end up ballooning into a much larger issue. White man and rich, yeah. I mean, you already know I'm the enemy. I'm an LGBTQ foe, as I openly declare all the time. Yeah, I think, bro, you're blaming society for Cutie's words? Well, one, I don't even know what she said, but I know Cutie. I've said this before, but sometimes otherwise good people can come across very poorly. And I think the same level of charity and grace that we would offer people that we know personally, we often don't offer to people behind a camera. And the reality of the matter is the immediate pushback also causes people who are not ready for any sort of pushback whatsoever and treat it as hostile, will cause them to double down and make mistakes or come across really poorly. But ultimately, I usually try to look at everything that a person is doing. You know, it's objectively very difficult for me to look at Twitch streamers, or at least like Twitch streamers like Cutie Cinderella, or even Twitch streamers like the FaZe Clan boys, as major ops or major hurdles against like queer liberation, black liberation, and the overall liberation of all peoples, when there are much more important targets out there that get no scrutiny whatsoever because they're not in the ally adjacent territory. And it's also doubly silly when I consider my own position, which is someone whose ops are in the American government, you know, someone who's trying to do the right thing every day combating this administration's fascist policies, it comes across as like very narrow in its focus. I don't think every single person is a secret fascist, and I also don't think that it's a healthy attitude to hold. I do, however, think that it's difficult to get people on board with stuff, especially when the easiest type of jokes that you can do is often targeting those who are vulnerable and marginalized. And a lot of people lean into that. So I perhaps give even more grace to those who don't always lean into that when they could easily do that with not only no repercussions whatsoever, but with promotion associated with it. Because in this day and age, I feel like if you're going to be, anti-queer, anti-immigrant, racist, white supremacist, there is a avenue for that sort of behavior. There's quite literally an avenue for that. Like, you can gain more prominence if you become openly reactionary. This isn't even about Cutie, by the way. I don't know. It's just, it's very unproductive to grift to the left, quote unquote, grift to the left. Watch Cutie's VOD if you want an in-depth apology. She apologized for it. Good. Remember, this doesn't mean that Cutie Cinderella nor anyone is actually infallible or above accountability or they're perfect. This is a reflection of the human condition, that we are all imperfect, that we all make mistakes. And sometimes, or all the time, we don't want to acknowledge that we made mistakes. Sometimes we can't see it because we're blinded by our own privilege. And in other instances, even if we kind of see it, it takes a while to get on board, especially if the broader attitude in the space is these wokes, they're unbearable. This is something that I warned about quite a bit. Like, people literally look at us and my community, in spite of my attempts to constantly try to dial back, endlessly going after everyone over perceived slights or major slights that are valid, but making a much larger ordeal out of it. You're missing the point. Them already, if they don't like us, it's not our job to get them to like us. What are you talking about? No, you're wrong. Your take is her take, Lamau. They about to fry your ass. Oh, McG, I hate this drama shit. No, that has always been my job. No, that's you've completely missed the point as a 19-month subscriber if you think that that's not my job. Why do you think I spent so much time talking about Zohran Mamdani, constantly having to navigate between talking about the Islamophobic attacks that he's receiving and then refusing to actually address it? Because if he were to constantly talk about that, then he would come across as a spoiler. Sometimes you have to eat it. I do it every day. I'm just sick of these people and how we have to be nice. How about we say f them? Well, the problem is, I understand that. The problem is, if you say that, then we can't win them over. And if you want to make changes, you got to win them over, especially those in the margins. I would present the impact that even Cutie Cinderella has had in a very positive manner with the likes of Jason the Ween, someone that you guys actually enjoy. Jason the Ween has an incredibly tolerant community, especially in comparison to the vibes and the overall attitudes that many have in that demographic. We were just talking about the alt-right. We were just talking about the far-right manosphere pipeline just a second ago. They'll always win if we keep up this mentality. That's the unfortunate reality. They don't have these sorts of hangups. They don't need to have these sorts of hangups because there is no protection that is required for any of the marginalized people. So it's a much easier ground for them to stand on to constantly refill their numbers, to constantly bring on more people onto their side. Whereas those of us who are on the left have a much more difficult undertaking. Privilege ass take. I love you, but be for real. It's also entirely dependent on the severity of the gripe. Like, I'm not in here being like, yeah, immediately have someone like hang out with someone who is being a Nazi or some shit. Don't be ridiculous. Or hang out with someone who's like dropping the T slur or talking about how trans people are disgusting or gross or some shit like that. That's not my point at all. But I think a lot of you immediately take it to that level, and it's understandable because that is what you have experienced in your life. As a black person, I'm tired of trying to convince Freeze to be right. I'm more about action now. Like, we need the Black Panthers back. I don't disagree with you on that. It's actually, I should have established the boundaries. Now, obviously, they can change, but it's kind of like how we do the moderation in this community, right? Where there are certain things that go beyond a minor slight. There are certain things that go beyond minor slights. There are okay. Are we good? I didn't speak as soon as it bricked. I stopped speaking. Don't worry, you didn't lose anything. But yeah, the point I was making is that I've always operated under the assumption, or not the assumption, but operated off of the analysis that everyone is susceptible to social conditioning. That everyone is susceptible to social conditioning, and therefore people are products of said social conditioning. So if we as leftists understand that we live in a white supremacist, patriarchal, anti-queer society, then the people are going to reflect those values. And obviously, the goal should be to get them to stop believing in these things, right? Stop reflecting on those values. Everyone goes on a different journey. Sometimes you have that kid that we just watched on The Guardian talk about how he went on his own personal journey and was luckily snapped out of the manosphere black pill incel pipeline. Others are not so lucky. So my goal is to try and use the privilege that I have to try and pull people that are in the margins, that are about to make a big leap in the rightward direction, back to our side and develop a better understanding. And I think the only way that I can do that, or the way that I've done so successfully over the last couple of years, is not by coddling racists or coddling bigoted people and bigoted opinions, but by showing people that those who are right-wing, who hyper-focus on marginalized communities and make a mockery of them, are actually strange, they're weird, they're obsessed. It's the same social pressure dynamic that I was talking about. I think that's a better way to deal with it. It's a better way to deal with it than to immediately clamp on people. Because in many circumstances, due to the same dynamic that I explained, systemic factors at play, and the social conditioning that comes along with it, many people don't even realize that they are engaging in oftentimes dangerous rhetoric or dehumanizing rhetoric. They just think like, oh, this is just a joke. What's the problem? My point is, not everyone that tries to make a joke, sometimes even a cruel one, is objectively a fascist. But if we check them and say, hey, man, that's kind of up. Why are you saying this? Especially after developing social capital with those people. In my experience, that's a much more successful way of coming across not like a hall monitor, but instead as someone who can be more productive in changing their minds. Now, of course, as I always say, this is not something that I expect from people who are directly being marginalized in that moment. And I do understand why people get mad. You know? I understand it. That can be their first step to finding them. Yeah, exactly. I think these broader initiatives of having normal relationships with people who are not like outwardly political content creators, for example, can also help many find communities like this one. It's been very effective. And it's been especially effective. If it wasn't, then the right wing and these like dipshit, incel, racist, transphobic people wouldn't be actively trying to make me into a toxic person that is irredeemable and even go after my friends who have nothing to do with politics at all. They do that so that I am isolated in general, because they realize that if I'm not isolated and I have normal relationships with these other communities, then their fan bases will be much more charitable to my worldview. And God forbid, maybe even change their perspective. But that's it. Cutie's problem is unrelated to you. Yeah, I mean, I'm not very familiar with what happened. I'm just talking about my own principles that I oftentimes repeat to an audience that doesn't want to hear it. That's not true, actually. Many of you do want to hear it. Some of you even recognize that you took advantage of that charitable tone that I took on for whatever perceived bigotry that you exhibited, and therefore became who you are now. But yeah, I'll always point to Speed's growth and why I always present Speed as like a wonderful example of growth in general, even though the odds were absolutely stacked against that. And I'll always present someone like Jason, for example, as a great alternative. People that aren't expressly political at all. The type of content creators that are seen as apolitical. And yet, they're much more tolerant. These guys could just as easily been Aiden Ross adjacent content creators, you know? And it's important for us to recognize that, where a lot of people go, oh, wow, look at that. You're, offering charity to people just because they're not like racist shitheads or whatever. But it's like, yeah, if the entire media environment nowadays, especially after Elon Musk took over Twitter, is rewarding you for being a racist shithead and you're not doing that, then, I'm going to be nicer about that. I'm going to weigh it against environmental circumstances. That's it. You feel me? And I do this to people who have declared me their enemy, people who have declared me to be their ops and shit too. No, I'm not eating fish. I'm eating chicken teriyaki. Anyway, let's get to the government shutdown. Hasan Reactions is one of the best ones in the React channel.